What a time to be a Catholic who loves the traditional Latin Mass. 2 weeks ago, my heart was broken. It was really difficult when Pope Francis, His Holiness, released his motu proprio, Traditionis Custodes. And I just want to share a little bit of why you should not lose hope. So firstly, I'm going to talk about why you shouldn't lose hope. Secondly, I'll share more about this documentary trilogy we're doing, how you can watch it, and then if there's any questions, I can take some questions at the end. This is just a casual conversation. I hope to interact with you, so please, wherever you're watching, leave a comment. 2 weeks ago, I did not expect the motu proprio to be so strict and harsh, and what I thought was inaccurate, ultimately, because I've been traveling all over the country for this documentary. You know, we've been sourcing footage internationally, and the vast majority of people who love the Latin Mass aren't divisive, angry, bitter people. They're not going to the Latin Mass because they are rejecting something, but they just found a treasure, the liturgy, the Catholic faith, and they want to share it with their family. They want to raise their family in the Latin Mass. So I was confused and hurt, and I'm sure all of us were after reading it. But we can't lose hope. The sure sign of the Holy Spirit living in you is peace. And peace is ultimately a choice. It's ultimately a gift from God. It is the realization of who God is and who we are and what our story is. So here's how the story ends, ultimately. At the end of this road, whatever this road leads to, or whatever's on this road, we know that the end is the kingdom of heaven. The end is an unshakable throne on which sits the King of Kings, who we worship in the Latin Mass. So no matter what happens, no matter how many twists and turns this road takes, we have to stay on this road. We have to stay in the church, and we cannot lose hope. Now, the way the evil one is going to attack you, especially people who are inclined to the traditional Latin Mass, is to lead you to bitterness, resentment, and ultimately to have hate in your heart. And to lead you to detraction and gossip and divisiveness. I heard it once from one of our interviewers that diabolos, I don't know the root word, but it means to divide. So if you're being divided, if you're let's unite, right? Let's unite to God. Let's stick to our prayer time, and let's hope and let's have peace. The church will not fail. And if you look back in church history at times like this, times of crisis, times of trouble, church history is not short of any, times of crisis, but what you find is our saints. This is the time for saints. And I don't know about you. I don't just want a comfortable life, an easy life. I would enjoy a comfortable, easy life. What I want is to be a saint. And another, I guess you could say, unfortunate thing about the past is there's too few saints. There's many saints, but in church history, compared to just the population of the church, there's too few saints. So you listening right now, I'm asking you to be a saint in this time. Be one of the few who are clinging to the church, staying close to the Lord, not leaving the church, praying for the church, just suffering well. That's what we need to do in this time, is suffer well and don't lose your peace. That is a sure sign of the Holy Spirit if you don't lose your peace. So here's something to encourage you. Here's probably my favorite quote in fiction, from Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov. Just listen to this. I read this whenever I am tempted to lose hope. I believe like a child that suffering will be healed and made up for, that all the humiliating absurdity of human contradictions will vanish like a pitiful mirage, that in the world's finale, at the moment of eternal harmony, something so precious will come to pass that it will suffice for all hearts, for the comforting of all resentments, for the atonement of all the crimes of humanity, for all the blood that they've shed, that it will make it not only possible to forgive, but to justify all that has happened. God is in control. So end quote. God is in control. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. You will be satisfied. Our road ends at the kingdom of heaven, so just stay strong and stay on the road. Okay, this documentary we're making, I had no idea, 2 or 3 years ago when the wheels started turning, that a month before release, we would have a motu proprio from Pope Francis restricting the traditional Latin Mass. Wow. I mean, talk about providence, talk about God's timing. He was stirring this idea in me and in my producer, Jonathan, and we were having a lot of conversations in the early days, and we were just like, yeah, we got to do this. We got to make a documentary about the Latin Mass. And, 2 years later, God knew exactly when it would come. And I want to tell a quick story about this. So about 3 months ago, me and my wife were driving in the car. I think it was 4 months ago, actually. We had just seen and shown the rough cut of the documentary to our team. So it was, me, the cinematographer, assistant editor, producer Jonathan Weiss, and we were watching the documentary. And at that point, it wasn't a trilogy, so it was just one film, and it was 90 minutes long, and it was just packed with stuff. We had done so many interviews, so much content, and we were getting through so many different things. And it's so good having these check marks along the way to make sure, like, okay, let's just watch this. It's not polished. Let's just see if the story works. Let's just look at the content. And the overwhelming thing we realized was this is too much to do. This feels like 3 films. So my wife and I were driving a few months ago, and we were driving in Cleveland. We just had 4 hours to just dream. Anything's possible. Okay, we're making this documentary. Lord, what do you want to do with it? Let's just put it all on the table and talk about it. What should we do with all this content? And we came to the realization, me and my wife, like, well, why can't this just be a trilogy? We have so much footage, so much content. When I get into a little bit more about each individual film, you'll see that they're very different. So the films in the trilogy will feel very different. And there was just complete peace around that decision, and everything just kind of fell into place from that moment. So once we realized we were doing 3 films, it's like, hey, let's focus on episode 1. What we realized was we had a story for each film that we had captured. So we don't just want to give a lot of facts about the Latin Mass, but we want to invite the viewer into a story. I think the best documentaries follow a story, something that your heart can connect to while your brain is analyzing it. And each of these 3 films had a story to it. So we had episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3, and we had already filmed the stories for them, and it was just great how it all fell into place. So episode 1 comes out August 15th in just a little less than 2 weeks, and you can join us live on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption. Now, the only way you can ensure that you have the link to view it is to get notified. So go to our website, theliturgy.org, and click Get Notified. And you will get an email, probably like a few days before release. You'll get an email with the link to it, and click on that link and you can join us for our live premiere. After that point, so there will be a live premiere, but you will also be able to view the film for free. We're just, so many generous supporters allowed us to make this film, so we want to give it to people for free. And the money that's been coming in this past week and a few days, we're going to put into our marketing and distribution strategy, because we want to reach millions of Catholics. We want 1 million Catholics who've never been to the Latin Mass to attend a Latin Mass. We want 1,000 priests who've never celebrated the Latin Mass to decide to start to say the Latin Mass. We think this first film is going to be groundbreaking, and it's going to be a catalyst for a lot of good in the church. Episode 2, so let me backtrack again a little bit. Episode 1 is an introduction to the Latin Mass. It's beautiful, inspiring. It shows how the Latin Mass is a solid foundation in a time where there's a lot of confusion and division in the culture. It is Catholic culture to level 10, whereas the culture is anything but Catholic. Episode 2 is a surprising investigation into how the new Mass came about. So a lot of people believe that Vatican II created the new Mass, but that's not entirely accurate. Vatican II set this in Sacrosanctum Concilium, set the standards for what the new Mass should be. Then a group put together by St. Pope Paul VI, called the Concilium, their job was to implement the vision of the council and to create the new Mass, to basically revise it. It is surprising, the twists and turns in this narrative. And you hear bits and pieces all over the internet, but we've really done our homework. We've really looked into it. We have writers on the team who are really clever and know kind of all the ins and outs. And we're presenting the narrative of how the new Mass came about. It's surprising and still, we hope, inspiring. Once again, we have a story featured with episode 2 that is a little more lighthearted and to balance, the gravity of the topic we're talking about. Episode 2 will release this year. That's as much as I can promise. We will get it out this year. My hope is by the end of fall, beginning of winter, around that time. Episode 3 is about, and this is amazing the way this happened, because as soon as we started talking about turning this into a trilogy, we realized episode 3, if episode 1 is about here's the Latin Mass and episode 2 is about that Mass being taken away, well, episode 3, obviously from a storytelling perspective, is how the Latin Mass kind of had a resurgence. Well, when I started to hear rumblings that there was going to be a motu proprio about restricting the Latin Mass, that's episode 3. So what we're going to do is see how the story plays out. So see the fallout, see what implications there are. Are there parishes struggling across the world that we can go to and feature? What does this mean? There's a lot of questions out there, like what are the limits of the Pope's authority? Vatican I seems to say that it's unlimited authority, but there's qualifiers in other church documents, like can you really abrogate an ancient liturgy? The Pope, there's certainly precedent in church history for the Pope having the authority to just revise the liturgy, to make changes, sometimes significant changes. So episode 3 is going to be talking about the future of the Latin Mass. And we have another story associated with that. Ricky and Leah, Leah Darrow, you might know her, and her husband Ricky. Their story is perfect for this. The title for film 3 that we're kind of throwing around our heads is Birthright, talking about the Latin Mass is our birthright as Catholics. So anyways, that's the trilogy. Episode 1 comes out August 15th. Join us for the live premiere. Details at the bottom of the screen. Episode 2, which talks about the new Mass, will come out this year. In episode 3, we're gonna give some time for this episode because you have to see how things kind of play out. So I'm not going to give a date yet for episode 3, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Now here's an exciting thing. Episode 1, like I said, it's going to be available online for free. You can watch it. Episodes 1 and 2, we're going to package them together for a theater screening tour. So we think if we get episode 1 and 2 and show them together, kind of like a double feature, it'll be an amazing catalyst across the country for people to invite their friends, priests, maybe bishops, to attend and watch, firstly, how important the Latin Mass is, and secondly, how the new Mass is just insufficiently reverent for the people who attend the Latin Mass. We're not just talking about balloon masses and clown masses. We can all agree that's silly. It should never be the case. What we're talking about is the surprising changes to the actual missal of Paul VI. And we think if we have this national screening tour where you can experience episodes 1 and 2 in the theaters, that it'll just create this movement where we can get millions of people to see Mass of the Ages and thousands of priests to start celebrating the Latin Mass. So stay tuned on our website. We'll be releasing more information about our screening tour all across the country. Basically, you watch a film on YouTube and it can be really good quality, but we've remastered, or I guess mastered, because it's not how yet. We're also developing Mass of the Ages episodes 1 and 2 to be experienced in a theater. So it's going to have theater quality picture and sound. It's basically surround sound, and it's going to be an experience that's going to be amazing. We don't just want to make a nice YouTube video that thousands of Catholics will see. We think this is going to be a great catalyst for change in the church that millions of Catholics will see all across the country, and we want to make it a big event. So a screening tour all across the country is the only way you will be able to watch episode 2 at first. So episode 1, available online for free. Episode 2 will be a package deal. You come to experience Mass of the Ages episode 1 in theaters, and you get to also see episode 2. It's like a double feature. Okay. So I'm going to take, if there's any questions, I'll take questions for a little bit. But firstly, I wanted to show something that gave me encouragement. So my communications producer shared this with me. Someone put together a list of what is happening in dioceses all across the world. So let's see here. It's called traditionescustodes.info. If you go to it, you can see around dioceses across the world whether they have not suppressed the Latin Mass, so that's green, that's good, or if there's been some suppression, like maybe, okay, there's this only one chapel in the diocese can celebrate the Latin Mass, but all these other personal parishes are closed down. That will be like yellow, some suppressed, and then red is they just locked it down for the whole diocese. You can see if it's been made official or not. So this is really cool. So let's look through this. So I just organized it by official, if it's official or not, and look at these dioceses across the world. I'm just going to scroll through. We won't go line by line, but just look. Look at all this green. Look at that. Go to page 2. Page 3. Look at all these dioceses that are just saying, you know what? Ooh, what's happening in Costa Rica? Maybe we should go to Costa Rica. Maybe that's part of episode 3. We go to Costa Rica and figure out what's going on there. And who are the faithful that are being, disenfranchised. I mean, just look at all this green, though. This is amazing. This is not 1970 anymore, where you only have like one or two dioceses in the world that are doing the Latin Mass, and that you need, you're not getting the permission. So the good thing is bishops all across the world are allowing the Latin Mass. Green, mostly across the board. That there's been no suppression in those dioceses. That's awesome. Check it out for yourself, traditioniscustodes.info. That's really cool. So let me see if there's any questions. Newsweek did a story, thank you, Jimmy, on our TLM parish that has 500 people at Mass in an old fish store every Sunday. Archbishop Amond was there the Sunday the Motu Proprio came out. A fish store. Wow. Well, yeah, the Motu Proprio seems to restrict the Latin Mass. If it's not a designated place from a bishop, it seems like you can't really celebrate it anywhere except a fish store. So that's pretty impressive. One reason I became a Catholic was because of the Latin Mass and its reverence to God. I refuse to cling to a pagan Mass where the priest hands out the Eucharist like a deck of cards. That is unfortunate. Yes, we need more awareness for things like particles that are lost when the Eucharist is communicated in that way, where it's very cavalier. We need more education about that. Will the film be in 4K? Yes. We're producing it in 4K. So originally it'll be on YouTube. You can watch it, just like I said, for free. But then we'll make it private after that point and put it on our website in glorious 4K, because YouTube will compress it and it won't look as good as it can. So it will be in 4K. We have thought about making this film in Latin. If someone wants to pull that off, get in touch with us. That would be awesome. Maybe not a Latin dub, but what about Latin subtitles? That would be so great. Okay, let's see. Dave, you said the website seems to be malfunctioning. I'm getting an unknown error message when I try to schedule a reminder about August 15th. All right, let's try that out. Let's go to this. Let's see if this works. Go to theliturgy.org. Click this Get Notified button. It's all across the website. First name, Mass. Last name, Of the Ages. Email address. Don't want to give my personal email address. film@theliturgy.org. I want, what do you want? What do you want? To see the film. Anything you want to add? No, thanks. You will be notified about the online premiere. Okay, so it seems to be working. Dave, maybe you could email film@theliturgy.org and we can work with your particular case to see what might be going on. All right. The website, again, is theliturgy.org. Yep, thank you, Sherry, theliturgy.org. Yeah, that tour will be awesome if theaters are still open. So the cool thing is, after COVID hit, let me take this off for a second. After COVID hit, a lot of theaters, they were closed for a few weeks, but then they opened and allowed people to just rent them out for really affordable prices. So if that does happen again, anyone here could host their own screening and invite their friends to it. So we'll make that as easy as possible for you guys. Peter, 7.1 Dolby Pro Logic would be good. We are doing a 5.1 mix, and you seem to know more about that than I do. So 5.1 is a good mix for theaters as well. How about international sponsors and viewings? So we'll have more information coming out about how to host your own screening. This film is going to be translated with subtitles into so many different languages. There's like a dozen or more different languages. So we'll have that available for you. And maybe you could let me know what you mean by international sponsors. So you can reply to that. I can get that to a little bit later. Will you get in Spanish Audible? So I have heard that Spanish-speaking individuals like Spanish dubbing more than Spanish subtitles. So we are looking into that. So stay tuned. We are leaning towards hiring dubbing, if that's what most people prefer. So, Sally, it will not be, if you want to run like a traditional screening tour where you're going through the theaters and sending them film, it's like millions of dollars to pull that off. What we're doing instead is providing a package where people can license and download the footage that is optimized for the theater experience. And then those people can rent out a theater, charge admission or whatever you want to do, or raise money for seminarians or whatever. And we're doing more of a grassroots approach. So technically anyone can sign up to host their own premiere, their own screening. So I would like to give a shout out to my goddaughter on her birthday, Riley. Happy birthday. Yep, the website, as you know, is theliturgy.org. I already answered some of these. Okay, this is a great question. I was just checking out your website. I looked at your Find a Latin Mass link and saw SSPX listed. Do you discuss SSPX schism in your documentary? So this documentary is an introduction to the Latin Mass, and we do get into it, but there needs to be an entire documentary dedicated to the SSPX. Maybe that's something we could do in the future. I think it's obviously fascinating. If Archbishop Lefebvre did not do what he did, say what you want about what he did. I'm just saying if he didn't do what he did, we probably would not have the Latin Mass like we do today. So we do discuss it, but at kind of an introductory level. So it's obviously part of the story. When we're talking about the resurgence of the Latin Mass in episode 3, we're obviously going to mention Archbishop Lefebvre because he is a critical character. Will this be available on DVD later on? Probably. So many people have asked for that. I do have a DVD player. I have an Xbox. So, but yeah, a lot of people surprisingly still have DVDs and watch them. So that's great. Likely, yes. Will you look at the history of liturgy and origin of prayers, devotion, etc.? So this is similar to a question before about SSPX. This is when you're making a film and not a History Channel series that's multiple seasons, you have to choose what is critical to the story. It has to be compelling, entertaining, but still be accurate and truthful. So that means that we're not getting deep into the actual history of a lot of the liturgy and the origins of prayers. We do, again, at an introductory level, just so people are aware how old these prayers are, how time-honored the liturgy is. We do get into that, but it's not going to be like this deep dive into every century of the church leading up to modern times. Keith, any plans on a Facebook page? So we do have a Facebook page. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but if you go to Liturgy Film on Facebook or Twitter, you can find us there. Let me know if that wasn't your question. Thanks for all these comments. This is great, guys. Dan Driver, I just added you to my credits. This is my friend Dan Driver. The reason I added you to our credits, special thanks to you, is because Dan was the one who originally invited me to a Latin Mass. And I likely wouldn't be doing this if he didn't do that. And yeah, I mean, he said to me, imagine, so we both had grown up, or not grown up, we both were on net ministries together. And a great thing about net ministries is they teach you how to have a daily prayer life where you meditate on the Word of God, and it's life-changing. Well, he said to me, it's like, the Latin Mass is like Mass, but you can meditate at Mass. You can pray at Mass. And that was amazing to me. You go to Mass, and there's not this uninterrupted, loud resuscitation of English prayers, which is that can actually be a hindrance to deep meditation, just vocal prayers, constant vocal prayers. It can actually weary our attention, the constant out loud resuscitation of prayers for, an hour straight. So thank you, Dan, for introducing me to the traditional Latin Mass. You will volunteer your son to dub it in Spanish. Well, send him our way. Send an email to film@theliturgy.org. Okay. Donald Morgan, SSPX is not in schism. So I'll use this opportunity to mention that on our TLM Finder page, we do have SSPX listed with some caveats saying they're in an irregular relationship with the church. Look into it yourself. I'm not a canon lawyer. I do know that the chief canonist of the church, Cardinal Burke, said they are in schism still. I'm confused. Honestly, I'm not an expert in this. So the argument goes like this. SSPX is in schism, so therefore their masses are illicit. So you shouldn't attend SSPX. Well, what I would say is if I'm traveling and I have two options, one is a Novus Ordo parish that just has gone off the rails. Like, basically, attending this Mass would offend the piety of my children. It would lead them to question the real presence and other things, the doctrines of the church, and SSPX. The argument is you have two illicit masses. You have a Novus Ordo that's just not doing it by the rubrics. They're just going crazy in this direction. And the SSPX, which is, through historical reasons, is in an irregular relationship with the church. They do offer, in their Eucharistic prayer, they do pray for the Pope. So they see themselves under Pope Francis. I would choose the SSPX traveling. That's my personal opinion. Because for that one Mass, if all things being equal, if they are both illicit, at least this one won't offend the piety of my children. So people are smarter than me on this topic, so I'm not going to go further into that. How about a Facebook group? Okay. I've done social media before. So a group and a page. So yeah, a group would be like where people could interact more as like a group setting rather than a page that's listing information about a business. So that's interesting. I'll think about that. Maybe there's some use for that. I imagine there's other Facebook groups that are Latin Mass focused that probably are doing a better job of that, but it's something to look into. What big name priests or lay people are involved? So far, your interviews have been really good. So, the focus for this documentary is, it's good to get celebrities, but we really want experts. And sometimes there's a difference. So, for example, my favorite interview, I think it was the most genuine and insightful and helpful, was Father James Jackson, who wrote the book Nothing Superfluous, which you can find on our website under resources. And he's just an expert. He's not a public figure. He doesn't have a show. He's just a holy priest who loves the Latin Mass, and he knows a ton about it. And he's an amazing orator and an amazing interview. So we have some big names. Dr. Peter Kwasniewski, Dr. Taylor Marshall. We have some bishops, Bishop Strickland, bishops of Lincoln, Bishop Conley, and Bishop Emeritus Breskowitz. Many other priests and individuals who are experts. And also, like I mentioned, this is a story-first documentary trilogy, so we have stories of individuals, too, that you wouldn't necessarily recognize. But I can promise you it's equal parts insightful and inspiring. Let's see. Regarding international sponsoring, I've sponsored via Kickstarter from the Netherlands. Oh, thank you. So you were with us from the very beginning. So my question is, do we get episode 2? I suppose you want tour here. So eventually, we are doing a screening tour where the only way you can watch episode 2 is in theaters. But eventually, all these films will be available for free for anyone to watch them. So many generous supporters gave to this film and allowed us to make this series. And we don't just want to charge people for it after that. We just want as many people to see it. So like I said, the money we raise from this point is allowing us to reach more people through marketing and distribution. So you will get to see episodes 1 and 2 and 3 for free, no matter where you are, eventually. And again, regarding a tour, this is a grassroots effort. So anyone who wants to show the films, episodes 1 and 2, once they're released, can do so. You can find more information on our website as we approach the end of the year. Okay. So thanks for your comments. I'm not going to comment anymore on the SSPX because I'm not an expert, but my opinion is thank you, Archbishop Lefebvre. Pray for your soul. I love the fruit of what happened. I'm not an expert in all the minutia of the middle ground, but I hope to be someday. I would love to read the biography on Lefebvre, and I would hope to do a documentary someday on the SSPX. I think that would be awesome. So I have not seen Vigano's statement on Traditionis Custodes yet, but I have it saved. I plan to watch it soon. Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you for all your support. We couldn't be doing this without you. So excited to show you episode 1 on August 15th. Please get notified on our website so you can get access to that live premiere. We'll be interacting with you in the comments. And that's the only way you can watch it, can ensure that you can watch it. So excited to show it to you. Please join us. And it's the Feast of the Assumption, so let's consecrate ourselves to Jesus through Mary and keep praying for the church. Stay close to the church. All right, God bless you guys.